This is Pastor Rob Moore from St. Paul Lutheran Church here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And I want to welcome you to our site here where we share some of our sermons that are online. This week is from our Palm Sunday, which is also called Sunday of the Passion. So I invite you to watch that and hear a little bit about how God specifically comes into our lives in a very specific way, calling for a very specific response. So thank you, and come and join us this Holy Week. Blessings to you.
The lessons and the stories that we hear from today for Palm Sunday, for Sunday of the Passion, come across to me sometimes the same way as a newspaper article. First there's a snappy, kind of inviting headline, then there's a summary, and then it's finally followed by the details. We started today with Palm Sunday. People rejoice as King rides into town, promises peace, the headline. There is a passage, a hymn from Philippians that summarizes the entire Passion story. Then comes the whole long story, the Passion narrative from Mark, what we saw in our video for today. That story is so long that there is very little time left for a sermon. But that's okay. I don't usually get objections to short sermons. But to say just a few words about the Passion of Christ is like trying to say a few words about all of life. But each year, I do see something a little different in the Passion story. See it from a little different angle. And the word that came to my mind this year as I read through the Passion story was the word specific. The whole story strikes me as being very specific. It is, first, specifically human. The lessons begin with the all-too-human plottings of religious leaders. Then a woman touchingly and prophetically anoints Jesus and is rebuked for the waste of money. A meal is shared among friends. What could be more human than that? In the garden, the best of intentions fall off their mark. A touch of violence explodes amid frustration. People force a verdict which their human, short-sighted wisdom tells them must be true. One in authority attempts to bargain with life and finally gives in to public opinion. In all of this, we can easily recognize our own humanity. We can recognize ourselves. We stand condemned for these acts, all human, all specifically human. Next is the very specifics of death. This is the great stumbling block even today, that Christ the Lord, the Son of God, should have been tainted with the ugliness of death, beaten, spit upon, mocked, crucified. The death of our Savior is distasteful specifically because it is described so painstakingly, so specifically. It is hard to think positively about that death, to approach it in an upbeat manner because it reflects on us. Jesus Christ died for who he was and who we are, specifically condemned sinners. Finally, though, the Passion story assures us specifically of our own salvation. This terribly specific story of Jesus' death is the terrible specific announcement of our redemption. All of our flawed humanity is wrapped up through God's grace in this death of Jesus Christ. And as the result, our sinful nature, all the sins no longer count against us. Each of us is specifically forgiven. And that is why all Christians everywhere are called to a specific response. What a headline we have to share with people. You are loved. You are forgiven. That is the kind of specific message calls for a specific action, the action of telling others good news. And there are specific ways that we can do that this week. Inviting a friend, neighbor, or relative to join you in worship at St. Paul, you can do that this week. Specifically, ask someone that you care about to join you for Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Vigil, or Easter morning. Introduce yourself to a visitor. Sit with a visitor. Serve as a greeter. All of these are specific ways to respond to a very specific message. You may find yourself trying to say a few words about the passion of Christ, that story. And it may seem to you like you are trying to say a few words about all of life. That's okay. It is specifically because of people like you that others join a congregation. It is specifically because of the message of the passion of Christ that we are called and even compelled to share this good news. And it is specifically because of the joy in being loved and forgiven by God that we are called to let all creation hear his voice. Amen.